creating unnecessary stress. How you guys doing? This is Ron Simplified Myers, author, podcaster, and your uplifting life partner. This is something that I've had this conversation on many occasions where people kind of they give me a hard time for it because they're like, you don't let anything get to you. And I have a thought process where if I can do something about it, then let's go do something about it. And if I can't, then I move on. As you guys know, I have the motto that I use all day, every day that says everything works in my favor, always has, always will. So I live by that. So even when things turn up, turn out the way I didn't actually plan it, the conversation I have is I don't even know why this is happening, why it went this way. But what I do know is everything works in my favor, always has, always will. So you guys can see that particular conversation, how it can keep you from going into a sad, angry, depressed, whatever words we want to use, where you don't go down those particular paths. Because what I believe is people spend so much time worried about things that never occur. I forgot the numbers, but it's like 80, somewhere between 80 to 90%. It might even be higher than 90% of the things that you and I worry about never even happen. So for most people, it should have happened because you've gone through all the pain as if it happened anyway. That it wouldn't have been any different if it really did, because you tortured yourself anyway. The key is, and again, like I said, people used to get on me all the time because they're like, "Well, what if?" That kind of reminds me of, well, I had this young lady in the car, and I picked her up, and I said, "How you doing?" And this was doing a ride share. She's like, "Not good." And she got in the car, she's crying, and I said, "Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. Is there anything I can do?" And she's like, "No, I just don't know. My car, I don't know. I gotta go try and get my car. I don't know if I can get my car." And so while we're driving, she calls. Now she's sitting in the back, she's just crying, and I mean hysterically, and I'm just like, wow, okay, where's her car actually at? And she told me it was at a parking garage. And so I'm thinking, well, why? If it's just at a parking garage, you're just gonna go in a parking garage and get your car, and no biggies. But I'm thinking, okay, maybe it got towed or something, and that's was her concern. I'm not sure, but I didn't want to dig into her situation because she was an emotional wreck at this time. So I'm just like, so I try to be careful when you don't have a relationship with people. Like in my case, trying to share the things that I do and teach, you have to be careful if you don't have a relationship with a person to instantly start to go into coach mode, because you might hear some things you don't want to hear, or might get cussed out, et cetera, because they didn't ask for your perspective, and they don't know you or trust you in order for you to be giving them that advice unless they ask. So, but anyway, so she's going through all of this. She calls the person on the telephone, and she's like, "What if I can't get my car? What if?" And obviously the person hung up, because next thing I know, she's still back there crying, and she's not on the phone anymore. And then she calls back, and the person again, and she's like, "Well, you asked them where did they drop me off at? Where did they pick me up at?" And I'm just like, "Woo!" So obviously this is serious. So I'm just like, and she's going through the whole time. This was probably at least a 25 minute to half hour ride. And of course, I'm like, man, I got to hear, and not to be, I don't want to sound like I'm not a caring person, but I was like, I got to get her to a car, because she just, I mean, the way she was going through it, I'm like, man. But what I did do, so you guys know that I'm not, it's not that I'm not a caring person, but if you followed me, you know that anyway. But what I did is I thought to myself, well, if her car's not there, she's gonna probably, because she was saying, I don't know what I'm gonna do if they have if I can't get my car. So I knew that the way rideshare works, I would get another ride while I'm taking her to go see about her car. So what I did is I turned off so they wouldn't give me any more calls, because I had made a decision that if her car wasn't there, I would take her wherever it was that she needed to go. But anyway, she asked me a little later, as we're driving, she says, "Sir, is there any way that you can wait for me? And and if not, I mean, and then take me back to where you just picked me up from if I can't get my car." And I said, "No problem." I said, "I got you." And so anyway, but then she continued to cry, and it was like, it was a wild event, you know. So you guys know when you do ride share, there's a whole bunch of stories you could share. But anyway, in this particular one, and so we get there, and so she goes into the garage, and it's a regular parking garage. And so she went in, and she walked in. She's looking, and she went up and down. And I hear this loud noise, like like screaming. And I'm like, oh man, did something happen to her car? Hopefully she found her car. I'm like, but I hope nobody broke in it or did anything like that. And so I'm like, wow. I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be a long ride back if something wrong where she can't. But then if she can't get her car or something's wrong with her car, and I need to still drive her somewhere, and I'm like, okay. So then she comes out of the garage, and I'm like, okay, she's not with her car. So she says, I can't find my car. And then she looked to the right side, and there was another parking lot right next to it. She said, what about that one? And I said, yeah, go try that one over there. And so she went over there. Then security came and was asking me, because obviously he heard the same things and all along. He's like, is everything okay? And I said, well, I'm doing the ride share. And I said, young lady, I just dropped her off. She's trying to locate her car. And I said, matter of fact, she just went over into the other parking lot over there to go see if her car's over there. And so he ran over there. Literally, he started running over there just to check and see what was going on. Because, of course, he heard the same thing I did. He's like, make sure everything is cool. And next thing I know, I see a car pull up, lights on. I look, it's her. Now, folks, this is what I'm saying. The trauma, the drama, the drama that she went through, the emotions, the the stress, the things that she went through, as if her car, she couldn't get it, her car was towed or whatever. She went through all of that pain and she felt it. And I heard it inside the parking lot when she, the loud screaming or whatever. Folks, and then she goes to the next one, her car is there, she pulls right out. And I'm just like, woo, this is why I always share with people. That's why for me personally, and again, I'm not saying good, bad, right, or wrong. For me personally, I'm gonna wait till I get there. If I can't find, even in the case where she asked me for the ride, if I needed someone to do that, I'd ask them, say, hey, you know what? If my car's not there, is there any way you'd be able to take me back where I just came from? I'm gonna deal with it if it becomes an issue. But right now, I'm counting on my car being there because remember what I said, everything works in my favor. Always has, always will. So for me, I'm expecting my car to be there. You guys get me? And I just believe that things work out the way you believe they work out in most instances. And if you have that expect things to work in your favor, then things work in your favor. If you expect things to work against you, things work against you. And I even said while we were driving, 1111 popped on my dashboard. For those who know numbers or whatever, that's like an angel number or whatever. And whenever I see that, I'll go through my everything works in my favor, always has, always will. This is just an example of that. That's why it's popping up, letting me know the angels got my back and everything works out. And in this particular case, I was saying even with her car will be there because the fact is she's hanging with me and everything always works out. Even those that hang around me, things work in their favor. So I actually was not shocked when her car was actually there. Not that, if folks don't misinterpret, I'm not one of those people that said because I put it out there because I got direct connections that I made this. I don't get into that, and it's a hard conversation when I hear people do that. It's like they did it. It's all them. I'm not taking credit for doing anything. I'm just saying, but that's kind of the where I live at. I expect things to work out. And but anyway, the reason I'm sharing that story is because you guys can see she went through all of this. And how many of you have done that in your life in different situations and different things that occur? You write these mental stories. That's why I told you guys the story I shared when this stuff first started happening with the virus and stuff, and that I was down for 2 days because I spent so much time in researching and investigating and all that kind of stuff, which means I was in a negative arena. And if you bombard yourself with positives or negatives, your body is going to take that on. Because I had totally immersed myself into all of this negativity, of course, it took me into a very sad, I don't know if we want to call it depressed. It probably was. Probably a depressed state. Well, I guess it was because for 2 days I was down. I pretty much didn't even want to get out of bed. But then I had to adjust because those are the things that I teach. I had to use what I actually share and say, Ron, control what you can control. You know that. You can't control all this stuff. So why are you emerging yourself into all of this stuff, which you know is taking you down a negative path and making you be totally stressed out, and that's what got me back in the ball game of life and got me back to working on my projects and that kind of stuff. Because folks, if I hadn't, but it did help me realize because I had never been at that kind of funk in my life, and so I didn't know what that was like. But it helped me realize that if I stayed there, it makes total sense how people get to a totally depressed state and how a person would get to the point where they would need mental help or where they would think of suicide and things like that. Because just for those 2 days, and I was like, but if that was just for 2 days, can you imagine staying there for months and years? What that would do to the psyche. And that's really the whole idea behind this conversation is, folks, the things that you can control, control. The things that you can't, move on. I'm not telling you not to be human. I'm not telling you not to have emotions, not to cry, not to scream, not to holler, because you guys know I teach just the opposite. If that's the way you feel, like in that girl's case, you need to do it, do it. Get it out your system. But do it quickly because you got to get back to living. So in her case, she did get back to living, but the reason I was saying that is because she had went through the emotional stuff, in her case, on something that hadn't even occurred. I'm like, at least wait for it to happen. And that's what I did with those 2 days that I was down. None of that stuff that I was envisioning actually took place, but I took myself there. And so again, I'm not sharing something that I haven't gone through or trying to make it sound like I'm this superhuman or that I don't feel it. I remember sharing with someone that I had gone down for those 2 days and they were shocked because they know my personality and know that doesn't happen because not because I'm this great gifted individual, but because I understand how the mind works and how we're the one that's creating these emotions based on the stories that we write. So this person was very shocked to hear me say that I had been down for 2 days. And so they asked me, they said, well, what do you do when the coach is down? What does the students do? And I said, the students recognize that the teacher is a human being. And he was like, whoa, I like that. Folks, I'm not telling you guys I don't go through the same challenges and the same thought processes. Everyone goes through different challenges. Even the most successful people, whatever your standards is of what success is, those people that you've labeled successful, they go through the same issues, the same challenges. The difference, their downtime is very, very short. Like in my case, it was 2 days, which for me is a very, very, very long time. But it's not when you compare it to people that have been going through it for months and years. Or like I shared with you guys before, I have a friend that I have to sit down and talk with her, but she's been going through the loss of her mom, but it's been over 10 years ago. But if you talk to her, you would think that it just happened this week or a couple of days ago. Folks, it's not a good place to be. And I know people will say, well, everyone has their own way of dealing with it. No, we got to quit making that kind of statement and making that sound acceptable. That's not acceptable. We can't sit back and watch a person struggle through life and use that as a justification. We have to step in and help them recognize their pictures, the stories that they're writing are creating these emotions. Let's see if there's a way that we can rewrite these stories to change the emotions so you can move forward. But the purpose of this, but in that case, she's dealing with something that actually happened. But the purpose of this conversation was stop stressing on stuff that hasn't occurred. Get better at believing things work in your favor. Because if you look at your life, you're still here. So the things have obviously worked out for you. Keep that mentality. It's a healthy mentality, and make the adjustments when necessary. Um, and I wanted to compare this to, because you hear people say always about plan B, when you talk about your goals and dreams of plan A, plan B, and people say make sure you have a plan B. This kind of falls in line with the same thing. The time you're spending on plan B is time you actually are taking away from plan A. That's why in relationships, if you sit back and you're searching out other people that could replace your current partner, that relationship will not last. Why? Because you're not giving the right energy to either the relationship you're in or in new other relationship that you're trying to plan as a backup. You're not committed to either one, which means they're going to both lack. And chances are very good you're going to end up losing both of them. You're definitely going to end up with some struggles. So let's deal with the things that we can change and wait till they get to that point where they need to be adjusted, so for our emotional stability, so that we're not stressed out and depressed and end up in some hospital on something that didn't even happen, but because we went through such emotions that it messed us up physically, and then come to find out it's something that never even happened, but you went through it anyway. Because as you guys know, it ain't right, it ain't wrong. It is my opinion. Run over to my app over at it's on Google Play, also in Apple Store. It's Simplified You, the letter U, not the word U. Simplified with a D. You, they're two separate words, and type that in. Pull up the free app. It give you access to everything that I got going on. Because as you guys know, if you're not having fun, you should be doing something else. Folks, just get good at recognizing I'm not going to worry, at least I'm not going to stress myself over something that hasn't occurred, teaching myself what could occur until I get to that point. Let's deal with it when it is a reality. So our current time is spent on enjoying our present moment. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Take care. Bye-bye.